Yo, what is going on, homies? It's your boy Stumped back for another OPTC video, and in today's video, over here on the Japanese side of the game, taking a look at the new KIZUNA KREIG and showcasing the teams that I'm actually using to take this particular event down, and showcasing the super bosses, what colors they are, what they do, and we're going to have a chat about what's going on. But in today's video, I am just showcasing my teams. I do have a one team beats all, but it's a little bit janky, so we'll see how it goes past level 30. But I do have 3 teams that do use the Kuro and the Buggy. If you guys don't have Kuro and Buggy, check out at the top of the, I'll leave a card at the top of the video, and I'll leave a link in the description to my prep video. Those teams should all work very, very well. But because this is a Super Boss KIZUNA, I do want to try and maximize my Super Boss tokens. So I am just showcasing my particular teams with the Buggy, with the Kuro. That way I can sort of just maximize my gains, maximize my Super Boss tokens, and get as many Super Boss runs in as possible, as this particular Super Boss is actually isn't zombieable. As from what, at this moment right here, as of 10:23 on the 24th of the 11th, this particular Super Boss is not actually zombieable, and it's a bit of a shame. Now, I was struggling really hard to get this recording up. I've been having major issues with like uploading, so I am just sort of like screencasting this. So I do apologize if the quality is a little bit lower compared to normal. But look, this is the best I could do. I did try and let it fix itself overnight, uploading and stuff like that, but unfortunately it didn't. So this is basically what we're working with. But because we are running double Kuro, we can use the Kuro special on turn 2. That way we get color affinity for our Kuros and our Buggy, and that way we can actually do a lot of damage to stage 2. On the final stage against KREIG, the first variation is a strength variation. Now, as you guys can tell, we are using a mono quick team, led by Katakuri, who has a powerhouse captain, and then Kuro, who's a friend captain. Kuro actually boosts driven and cerebral characters, so with this particular team, it is a bit janky because our Katakuri is not actually getting a buff. Neither is Hody, and neither is Jinbei, Donjin Jiao. But we do enough damage anyway for this particular team to operate, as our Kuros and our Buggies are going to be hitting very, very hard. Like, very, very hard. So as you can see, they're hitting for about 14 mil. I am going to have to change this team eventually, as the whole team doesn't synergize overly great. I'm going to have to look at sort of bringing in a driven captain. Maybe something like Dofi should work, or even bringing something like, what's his name? Kaido. Something like Kaido in, versus Kaido, or versus Kaido. So that was against the strength variation. Let's move on to the next variation now. Alright, so on to the next variation, we come up against a Dex variation of KREIG. So we are using Dofi as our captain and building a mono-driven team. Now, if you guys don't have Dofi, you can just use Kid. That was the team. There are no supports. Let's dive in. So as I mentioned, if you guys don't have Dofi, very, very easy. Just put Kid as your captain. Kid is a driven-based captain, and this is why like Kid has been so good moving forward on Japan. He's just so viable when you are missing some of these newer high-end legends, mainly because like strength, if it's got a lot of support, and especially driven. Driven has gotten so much support that if you guys have Kid, you're basically fine. We obviously are using the Kuros and the Buggy once again. Kuro's great because he's a driven or a cerebral-based captain, but you can use a friend Buggy here. That will work absolutely fine too. On stage 2, when we come up against Pearl, he's going to give us Special Bind, and that's why using Dofi as a captain works really, really nicely. Now, if you don't have Dofi, as I mentioned, you probably want to bring a friend Dofi, or replace Caesar with someone that can actually get around Special Binds. Or where that spot is with Kid, you probably want to put someone in there that can remove Special Bind for you, and that should work absolutely hunky-dory. Caesar's great because he's going to go around the Despair that creeps in after level 30, but he can also give us a chain multiplier growth. As you guys saw, we can use the Kuro special on turn 2 if you have a friend captain Buggy. You can just use the Buggy friend captain, that's fine. Or if you don't have Buggy yourself, but you have Kuro, bring a friend Buggy. If you have Buggy and you don't have Kuro, bring a friend Kuro. That way, you guys will be in pretty good stead. But the beautiful thing about using Kid on a Dofi team is you can double pop that Kid special to get the attack and the orb buff, and then you can use the Dofi special. The Dofi special, because you have an attack and an orb boost, will actually give you a base stat boost and a chain boost as well. We have color affinity thanks to our Kuro. Buggy can remove the threshold, which is great. And then with Dofi, we can turn into a super class, as well as get those extra chain shenanigans, the extra damage with the base stat boost, and it's all just going to work very, very nicely. So this team's just going to do absolutely bonkers damage. No issues with this team moving forward. This team's going to clap upwards past like level I don't even know what level, but it's going to do really, really well. No issues to changing that team like the quick team. Let's move on to the next variation now. Alright, so the final variation of the regular bosses is actually a quick variation. So you want to try and bring Dex units. So this is the team. Those are the supports. Let's dive in. Now, we are using Croc as our captain, but if you guys don't have Croc, you could probably use something like Vivi Rebecca. Vivi Rebecca should work absolutely fine. Or you could use something like Super Type Zoro. You could use something like Law, because Driven and Cerebral characters both get their cooldowns on this particular fight. This particular team is led by Croc. We are using the double Kuros again, and we are using Buggy. But for this particular team, I think bringing a friend captain Buggy is actually going to be a little bit more beneficial, because we actually get special reversed on this particular fight. I think it was this one. Maybe it wasn't this one. No, it's not this one. Using a friend captain Kuro is the way to go, because Kuro is actually a cerebral based booster as well as a driven booster. So for the first 3 teams that you see, utilizing a friend Kuro for all the teams is just a little bit more viable. But for when you see the one team beats all, we will have a chat about that then. On stage 2 against Mihawk, again, we're just going to pop either the double, like your Kuro or your Buggy, or whatever character you have in that slot. You can switch with Vivi Rebecca as well. Switching with Vivi Rebecca will actually give you a chain lock, and using the Stussy special can actually get around the damage reduction that he inflicts. On the final stage, you do get a 50% HP cut, which works very, very nicely for Croc. So if you don't have Vivi Rebecca, do not stress. You don't really need Vivi Rebecca. You can just replace her with another color affinity booster. On the final stage, we do get 2 turns of special reverse as well, so this is why utilizing a Croc special, as well as Buggy, works really, really nicely. But if you don't have Buggy yourself, you can bring a friend captain Buggy. Your captains don't get special reverse, which is great. So that way, if you have Croc, you have a friend captain Buggy, you can get around both turns of the special reverse. We do have the support of Mr. 1 to give us a chain boost. That's not essential, but it is going to help out with damage moving forward. We have color affinity with the Kuro. We have more color affinity with Vivi Rebecca as well, so there's also that. The Mihawk interrupt is actually the special interrupt, so you don't normally see Mihawk, but if you do get Mihawk, you will get an attack boost. I think it's something like a 2.75 times attack boost, so you kind of don't want it if you're using Croc, because he's just like, well, actually, no, 2.75 is actually better, because Croc is 2.5. So that's the team. As I mentioned, it's going to have lots of damage. It shouldn't have any issues. You could easily replace Vivi Rebecca on that team as well. Because you get the HP cut. I just had them there to proc the super typing, or super class. So that was the 3 damage teams for each individual form. Let's move on to the one team beats all now. Alright, so onto the one team beats all now. So the first variation is the strength variation, and this is the team. It is led by Dofi. We do have the new Hody, the 2 rare recruits, as well as who's that last unit? Croc on the bench as well. So this particular team is going to be a little bit janky, because it was actually pretty hard to put this together, because the Buggy and the Kuro, they just don't help out on stage 2 at all, and they really don't get around any of the shenanigans that come after level 30. After level 30, you do get blinded on the left-hand side for this particular fight, so utilizing something like Hody is really, really great. Dofi's awesome, because Dofi can get around special blinds, and this whole team is driven-centric. You can bring a friend captain Buggy, you can bring a friend captain Kuro. Either of them should work absolutely fine, because this whole team is driven-based. To get around the paralysis on this particular fight, we are using the support of Mr. 1. Now, this is a pretty high-end support, and I do imagine a lot of people don't have this support, and I do understand why, right? Because it's a support banner. But if you do, utilizing the Croc, the new Treasure Map Rare Legend, as well as that support, works really, really nicely. But obviously, as I mentioned, it's not something that you will definitely have. And I do understand that a lot of people won't definitely have that. We do have the Moby Dick. The Moby Dick is here, so that way we can actually activate the Croc. But you don't actually need that, because you do get HP cuts here and there. So you can replace the Moby Dick with the Shark Superb, which is probably what I'm going to be doing moving forward. To get around the attack down on this stage as well, we do have the Buggy and the Kuro. And then we do have the Hyozu support to get around Despair on the Dex variation. So there is Despair on the Dex variation. I'm not 100% sure how many turns of Despair that actually is. So I will be going in with my previous team. And because if it's 5 turns, this particular team won't actually work past level 30. So it is a bit of a yikes. But this is the closest thing that I could come up with. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys have any other ideas to make this team a little bit more viable. But that was against the, the strength variation. Let's move on to the next variation now. Alright, so I just jumped straight into battle 2 of the Dex variation, and we come up against Pearl, who gives us special blind. So this is why we wanted to have Dofi as our captain for this one team beats all. with Dofi as our captain, we just immediately get around that, and it just works really, really nicely. Again, you can use the Buggy special, you can use the Kuro special, whichever one you have a double up of. Remember that Kuro and Buggy are both a 5.25 times captain for Driven and Slasher for Buggy, as well as Driven Cerebral for Kuro. Now, it's a bit annoying, and when I say a bit annoying, it's very annoying. It's super annoying that they're not just Rainbow captains, but they are 5.25 times captains. This may be a little bit of a foresight into the future of what's to come with these little power creeps of captains, but nevertheless, if you can sort of build a driven-centric team, that way you can, like, bring either or. With Dofi as our captain on this particular stage against Don KREIG, we just have a full board of matching orbs anyway, which is really, really nice. We still have our Croc special because we didn't need the Croc special on turn 2, because Dofi just gets around the special blinds. With all of our specials here, we can give ourselves a full board of orbs. We can get an attack boost with Hody. We can get an orb boost with Buggy. We can remove the threshold as well. We have color affinity with Kuro. We have a chain boost and a base stat boost with Dofi. And then we have the chain boundary effect with Croc. It all just works really, really nicely, this team. This particular team and this particular variation is going to do the best moving forward. But as I mentioned, after level 30, there is Despair. Now, I don't know how many turns of Despair that is, and I'm assuming it's probably going to be 5 turns of Despair. So if that is the case, this team won't work, or I will have to try and find a support for either Buggy, Kuro, or Dofi that can remove another 2 turns of Despair, and from what I can see, there isn't one, so kind of stuck there. We may be able to replace Hody with someone that can remove Blind and Despair themselves, but again, we are stuck a little bit there. So that was the strength variation. Yeah, against the Dex variation. Let's move on to the final fight now. Alright, so I jumped over to stage 2 once again, and we come up against Don KREIG on this variation. We did come up against Mihawk in the previous fight, but the idea here is just getting around damage reduction. Once again, this is where Croc is so good, because Croc can actually give us a chain boundary effect, and then he can remove the defense up thanks to the Mr. 1 support. Once we move into the final stage, I think there is, after level 30, there is a chain boundary effect that gets inflicted, or an attack down for your chain boundary. So this is where you really want to try and get, like, your HP below 50%, so Croc can actually get his, 3 turns of chain boundary effect. Now, I'm unsure how I'm actually going to go about that, because as you can see there, I can only get 2 turns, which is really, really annoying. If there is any chain locking or anything like that, Croc is going to bypass it thanks to having the 2 turns. But I feel like once we get the chain boost thanks to Dofi, we will be okay, as long as you can get around the 2 turns of special reverse here. Now, this particular fight is where you actually want to bring a friend Buggy, because we can't trigger the superclass of Dofi. Without triggering the superclass of Dofi, we are a little bit stuck. So bringing a friend Buggy means that we can actually get 1 extra turn of cooldown with his special. It's going to work really, really nicely that way. Having Buggy as the captain, we get the cooldowns. With our Buggy, we get the 2 turns of cooldowns. Then we can get the attack boost with Hody. We have an orb boost with Buggy. We have a color affinity with Kuro. And then we can get the chain boost and the base stats with Dofi. Very important we actually get that chain boost after level 30, because when we get the chain down, as well as the lower attack, we are going to be needing to be above a certain chain boundary for that to actually do damage. So again, this team's quite janky. I do understand that this one team beats all, but if you have any other ideas, please let me know in the comment section below, because I am eager to try something else. Let's move on to the super bosses now, and let's get on to the fun stuff. Alright, so the first super boss is a strength super boss, as we expected. And this is the team, those are the supports, let's dive in. Now, I did tweak the team just a little bit. Now, I didn't have color affinity on the previous team. I did have, like, King on the team to get a chain boundary, but I realized Cracker's a thing, right? I don't normally think about Cracker, to be honest, but Cracker can also trigger the superclassing of Katakuri, which is really, really nice. So that way we don't have to worry about the 4 specials, but nevertheless, it doesn't matter too much. The big upside to Katakuri is getting his superclass is a lot easier than getting Croc and Dofi's. I think that's where he compensates, but Cracker not only gives a color affinity, but he gives a chain boundary, like a chain buff. So having him on the team is going to work really, really nicely. This particular team can do a little bit more damage, but you do need to stall and actually get the switch abilities of Page 1 ulti. For the sake of the video, I just realized that this team would have like endless amounts of damage anyway. So I figured that I would just showcase it with the chain boundary starting at 1.6 going upwards. And I think if you have super evolved Cracker, you will get a better chain boundary effect. So there is also that. But this team does absolute numbers. This team is the best of the 3 teams that I did put together. And shout out to Katakuri. Like, this is finally Katakuri doing something right. But he does have a lot of help in the regards that Powerhouse Quick, they do get along very, very well. Like, very, very well. The only character that doesn't have full synergy here is Sugar, but we are basically just utilizing her for her chain shenanigans, which is actually really, really cool. If you have King, I would highly recommend running King as your captain and bringing a friend Katakuri. That way, he's just a little bit, like, his chain boundaries a little bit better, and this team will actually output a little bit more damage. Thanks to Cracker, we have color affinity, we have a chain boost, we have conditional 2.25 with page 1 ulti, we have an attack boost with Katakuri, we have an orb boost with King, we have super class, we have super type, we have 2 times damage. We just have everything with this team. We literally have everything with this team, and it's super, super nice. Super, super nice. So this team just does absolute bits. It's going to work very, very well. But as I mentioned in the start of the video, these super bosses aren't actually zombieable anymore. It's a bit of a shame. But like, look at that damage, man. That Katakuri just spanks. That's why, like, Katakuri will be doing more damage if you put him in the, like, to the top left. So there isn't a way to zombie it as of we know right at this moment. But we may figure out some stuff over the next coming days. So that was the quick team. Let's move on to the next super boss now. Alright, so the next super boss is indeed a Dex super boss. So we did predict correct. This is the team. Those are the supports. Let's dive in. Now, the team is led by Dofi and Kid, as I mentioned in my prep video. We do have Kid on the team as well. Now, having Kid on the team is actually really nice because that way you can actually pop the 3 specials. But the problem with having Kid on the team is he does have a final tap, right? Because of Kid's final tap, it means that he's actually going to set the chain boundary to like 4.5. Now, ideally, you want your Kid to be last tap level 1, but unfortunately for me, weird flex, but like my final tap Kid's actually final tap level 3, which means he's actually going to set the chain boundary to a max when he does hit finally. The friend captain, however, I think the friend captain is only on a level 1, or if you can actually get a friend captain that's on level 1, that should actually work pretty fine. But for myself, I just didn't want to take the risk, especially for the sake of the video as well. So the idea here is to not turn the kids into bears, or definitely not turn my kid into bears, and actually tap with him tap with him first, so that way you don't actually get the final tap shenanigans. On the final stage against Don, KREIG, and Jin, we do get a full board of block orbs. That's basically all he does, but apparently there's special bind as well. I don't know if there is for this fight, but apparently there is. We are going to use the special of Caesar. Caesar is going to give us the chain boundary, and then we can actually use the switch ability of Mihawk Perona, and then use their special for a 2 times conditional boost against the negative effect. There is only delay immunity here, so you can actually get the condition of Mihawk Perona, but you could probably use something like page 1 ulti as well if you are missing Mihawk Perona, but Mihawk Perona are driven. They do have color affinity as well, which is really nice. So I feel like using Mihawk Perona is probably going to do a little bit more damage. But with Kid, we get the double pop special for the 2.5 attack, 2.5 orbs, and the 2 times color affinity. We get super type with their special. We have super class with Dofi because we have Sugar on the team as well as Caesar. And then we can turn everyone to bears. We have base stat, we have a chain boost. It all just works really, really nice here. Now, as I mentioned, you don't want to turn your kids into bears. But if you do have a friend captain kid that has a final tap level 1, you should be absolutely hunky-dory. Like, you shouldn't have any issues there. You could probably do some... Or actually, I left my Dofi not as a bear. So that way, I would get all of the taps. And then Dofi would be hitting hard on the final chain multiplier anyway, hitting for around 1.6 billion. So, again, let me know in the comment section below if you guys have some stronger teams for this particular fight. But this is the teams that I did manage to put together with what I was working with. So, let's move on to the final super boss and let's wrap up the video. Alright, so the final super boss is indeed a quick super boss. So, this is the team that I did use for the video, but I did tweak it. But this is the team nevertheless. And with that said, let's dive in. So, we have tweaked this team a little bit to actually get a little bit more damage output. If you actually use Zoro as your captain, Zoro is a driven-based captain, you can actually squeeze page 1 ulti onto the team. With page 1 ulti on the team, you not only get a conditional boost for 2.25, but you also get a chain boundary effect. You can then take Law, put Law as a sub, remove Dofi, and if you have Dofi, you can actually put Dofi as a support on Sugar, so that way you can get a 0.5 chain boundary. Or you can actually use Sengoku support, which is what I'm doing at the moment, on Law to get a 0.7 chain boundary boost. With that, the team does about double the damage, and it's just under 3 billion, and it works really, really nicely. We have Sanji Pudding. Still, they do give color affinity to our cerebral-based characters. You can use the color affinity of Zoro if you are missing Sanji Pudding, but Sanji Pudding are boosted as well. They not only give better color affinity to cerebral, which is Law and Croc, as well as themselves, but they just do more damage because they are boosted as well. Ideally, you want to put Sugar on the middle left as well, and then have, what's his name? Law in the bottom right, then having obviously Zoro as your captain. Because Zoro's not getting boosted under Croc as well, it just works a little bit nicer in terms of the tap timing and where they sort of fall, as you can just do a lot more damage that way. Page 1 ulti, again, not boosted under Croc, so you do want to put them in the middle right. So that's also going to work really nicely for you as well. You do get a chain boundary effect here, so you really want to make sure you bring a friend Captain Croc. But with Law, you have 2.75 times attack. You have a 1.5 times extra damage. You have a chain boost normally with Sengoku. Sugar turns everyone into bears. You have a 2.75 times orb boost with Zoro because you take all that damage with the HP cut. 2.25 color affinity. Chain boundary starting at 3 times going upwards. And then you have like a conditional boost with page 1 ulti. But with this team, if you don't have page 1 ulti, this team does work actually quite nicely as well. But with Dofi, you get a base stat boost to your driven characters, as well as getting the chain boost as well, the 1.4 times chain boost. If you don't have Dofi, you could use something like Kizaru. Kizaru could work as well. But then you are missing out on that base stat boost as well. But nevertheless, this team did work very, very well. But utilizing page 1 ulti, having Zoro as your captain, it does work nicer. So if you guys can put that comp together, I would highly recommend that, as you are just going to be doing a little bit more damage, as the positioning of units works a little bit nicer, and you can just output a little bit more than what the 1.2 you see there. It does around like 2.6 from what I can remember. But that's going to wrap up the video. Nevertheless, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to go down there and belt the like button for me if you're new to the channel. Hit that big red subscribe button too. But guys, wherever you are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Let's